You know what the most exhausting thing in the world is? It's not working 14-hour days. It's not juggling a million responsibilities. It's not even dealing with failure or rejection. The most exhausting thing in the world is trying to be someone you're not. It's waking up every single morning and putting on a mask. It's looking in the mirror and telling yourself that you need to change everything about who you are before you deserve success, before you deserve love, before you deserve respect. And I'm here today to tell you something that might shock you, something that goes against everything you've been taught by magazines and movies and social media and well-meaning people who think they know what's best for you. You don't need to change. You are already powerful. You are already beautiful. You are already enough. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're sitting there going, "Wait, but I do need to change. I need to lose weight. I need to be more confident. I need to be less emotional. I need to be more like her or him or them." And I get it. I really do. Because I spent years of my life believing the exact same thing. Years of my life thinking that I wasn't enough as I was. That I needed to be taller, lighter skinned, more Western, less Indian, more this, less that. I became a chameleon, constantly changing colors to fit whatever room I walked into. And you know what? It nearly destroyed me. Let me take you back to a moment that changed everything for me. I was on a film set, and I overheard someone say, "She's good, but she's not really leading lady material, is she?" And those words, they hit me like a physical blow. Not leading lady material. What did that even mean? I went home that night and I stood in front of my mirror for hours. I picked apart every feature. My nose was too prominent. My skin wasn't the right shade. My accent was too thick. My hair was too dark. My body was too curvy in some places, not curvy enough in others. I made a list, an actual list, of everything I needed to change about myself to become leading lady material. That list had 27 items on it. 27 things that were wrong with me. And here's the crazy part. I started working on that list. I started changing myself, molding myself, reshaping myself into what I thought the world wanted me to be. And you know what happened? The more I changed, the more miserable I became. Because here's what nobody tells you about transformation that comes from a place of self-hatred. It never ends. You change one thing, and suddenly there are 5 more things that need fixing. It's like trying to fill a bucket that has a hole in the bottom. You can pour and pour and pour, but you'll never feel full. You'll never feel complete. You'll never feel like you're enough. I want you to think about something right now. Think about all the energy you've spent trying to change yourself, all the hours worrying about what other people think, all the times you've held yourself back because you didn't feel ready enough, pretty enough, smart enough, experienced enough. All the opportunities you've missed because you were waiting to become someone else before you allowed yourself to reach for them. Now imagine if you took all that energy, all that time, all that incredible power that you've been using to tear yourself down, and instead you used it to build yourself up exactly as you are. Imagine what you could accomplish. Imagine who you could become. Because here's the truth that took me decades to understand: you are not a rough draft. You are not a work in progress waiting for some magical day when you'll finally be finished and perfect and ready to start your real life. You are the final version right now. This is it. This is your one beautiful, messy, complicated, powerful life. And it's happening right now, not someday when you've fixed all your perceived flaws. I remember when I first moved to America to pursue opportunities in Hollywood. I was so excited, but I was also terrified because I knew that I didn't fit the mold of what a Hollywood actress was supposed to look like. I was brown-skinned in an industry that favored pale. I had an accent in an industry that preferred a specific American sound. I came from Bollywood, which many people in Hollywood saw as less legitimate, less serious. I walked into meeting after meeting where I could see the confusion on people's faces. They didn't know what to do with me. I didn't fit neatly into any box they had, and for a while I tried to make myself fit. I tried to minimize my accent. I tried to play down my Indian heritage. I tried to be what I thought they wanted. But here's what I discovered: when you try to fit into someone else's box, You make yourself smaller. You dim your light. You cut off the very things that make you unique and powerful. I was trying so hard to be acceptable that I forgot to be exceptional. The turning point came when I was up for a role, and during the audition, the director said, "Can you do this without the accent?" And something in me just snapped, not in an angry way, but in a clarifying way. I realized that my accent wasn't a flaw. It was part of my story. It was evidence of the journey I'd been on. It represented the fact that I was brave enough to move across the world and pursue a dream in a completely different industry, in a completely different culture. My accent was a badge of courage, not something to be ashamed of. So I looked at that director and I said, "I can, but why would I? This accent is part of who I am. It's part of what I bring to this character. If you want someone who sounds like everyone else, there are 1,000 actresses who can give you that. But if you want someone who brings a unique perspective, who brings authenticity, who brings something different to your project, then I'm your person." Accent and all, I didn't get that role. But you know what? I got something better. I got my self-respect back. I got my power back. And that's what I want you to understand. Your power doesn't come from being like everyone else. Your power comes from being unapologetically yourself. Every single thing about you that you think is a flaw, every single characteristic that you've been told to change, those are actually your superpowers. They're what make you different. They're what make you memorable. They're what make you you. Think about the people you admire most in the world, the people who've made real impacts, who've changed things, who've left their mark. Were they successful because they were exactly like everyone else? Or were they successful because they had the courage to be different? Steve Jobs didn't become Steve Jobs by following the established rules of how computers should be made. Oprah didn't become Oprah by fitting into the traditional mold of what a television host should look like or sound like. Frida Kahlo didn't become one of the most celebrated artists of all time by painting like everyone else. They became icons because they embraced what made them different. They took the very things that society told them were weaknesses and turned them into strengths. I think about my own mother, who has always been one of my greatest inspirations. She's a doctor, and when she was starting her practice, people would tell her that she was too soft, too emotional, too nurturing to be taken seriously in medicine. They said she needed to be harder, colder, more clinical. But she didn't change. She brought her warmth and her compassion into her practice. And you know what? Her patients loved her for it. She built one of the most successful practices in our city because people felt cared for, not just treated. What others saw as a weakness was actually her greatest strength. So many of us have these narratives running in our heads about what we need to change. We need to be more outgoing if we're introverts. We need to be calmer if we're passionate. We need to be tougher if we're sensitive. We need to be softer if we're direct. We need to be more serious if we're playful. We need to be more fun if we're thoughtful. It's exhausting, it's impossible, and it's completely unnecessary. Let me tell you about a friend of mine who's a writer. She spent years trying to write like the best-selling authors she admired. She studied their techniques, mimicked their styles, tried to craft sentences that sounded like theirs. And she was miserable, and her writing was mediocre at best. Then one day, she just gave up. She said, "Forget it. I'm just going to write the way I write, and if nobody likes it, at least I'll enjoy the process." And you know what happened? That's when her writing became brilliant. That's when she found her voice. That's when publishers started paying attention, because she stopped trying to be someone else and started being authentically herself. There's this concept in physics called resonance. It's when something vibrates at its natural frequency, and when that happens, the vibrations are amplified. They become more powerful. That's what happens when you stop trying to change yourself and start embracing who you really are. You start vibrating at your natural frequency, and your impact becomes amplified. You become more powerful, not less. But I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, that's easy for you to say. You're successful. You're famous. You're already established. But I'm struggling. I'm not where I want to be in life. Clearly, something needs to change. And you're right. Something does need to change. but it's not who you are at your core. It's your relationship with yourself. It's your belief in yourself. It's your willingness to show up as yourself even when it's scary. Let me be very clear about something. When I say you don't need to change, I'm not saying you shouldn't grow. I'm not saying you shouldn't learn new skills or develop new capabilities or work on your goals. Growth is essential. Evolution is beautiful. But there's a fundamental difference between growing from a place of self-acceptance and changing from a place of self-rejection. When you grow from self-acceptance, you're saying, I am valuable as I am, and I want to become even more of who I authentically am. When you change from self-rejection, you're saying, I'm not good enough and I need to become someone else to be worthy. Think about a tree. A tree grows. It adds new rings, new branches, new leaves. But it doesn't try to become a different kind of tree. An oak tree doesn't look at a willow tree and think, I need to change everything about myself to be more like that willow. It just focuses on being the best oak tree it can be. It grows deeper roots. It stretches higher toward the sun. It becomes more fully itself. That's the kind of growth I'm talking about. Not transformation into someone else, but expansion into more of who you already are. I spent so much of my early career trying to prove myself, trying to prove that I was talented enough, pretty enough, worthy enough. And the more I tried to prove myself, the more insecure I became. Because when your sense of worth comes from external validation, you're always at the mercy of other people's opinions. You're always one criticism away from falling apart. It wasn't until I stopped trying to prove myself and started just being myself that everything shifted. There was this moment, I'll never forget it. I was at an event and someone asked me, how do you have the confidence to walk into rooms where you're the only Indian woman, where you're the outsider? And I realized in that moment that I'd been thinking about it all wrong. I wasn't walking into those rooms as an outsider trying to fit in. I was walking into those rooms as myself, offering something valuable that only I could offer. My perspective, my experience, my unique combination of talents and background and personality. I wasn't there to blend in. I was there to stand out. And once I embraced that, everything became easier. Confidence doesn't come from changing yourself until you meet some arbitrary standard of perfection. Confidence comes from accepting yourself so completely that other people's opinions become just noise. It comes from knowing deep in your bones that you have value exactly as you are. It comes from understanding that your worth is not up for debate. It's not something you need to earn or prove. It exists simply because you exist. I want to talk about beauty for a moment because this is where so many of us, especially women, get trapped. We're told from the time we're little girls that our value is tied to how we look. And we're given this incredibly narrow definition of what beauty is supposed to be. Light skin, thin body, symmetrical features, long hair, and on and on. And if you don't naturally fit that definition, you're supposed to change yourself until you do. Makeup, hair dye, contact lenses, plastic surgery, diets, whatever it takes. But here's what nobody tells you. That narrow definition of beauty is not some objective truth. It's completely arbitrary. It changes from culture to culture, from era to era. In some cultures, curves are celebrated. In others, thinness is prized. In some eras, pale skin was fashionable. In others, tan skin was desirable. The standards keep changing, which proves that they're not real. They're just social constructs. They're just stories we've agreed to tell ourselves, and we can choose to stop agreeing. Real beauty, the kind that actually matters, has nothing to do with whether your features match some temporary cultural standard. Real beauty is about presence. It's about the light in your eyes when you talk about something you're passionate about. It's about the warmth in your smile when you're genuinely happy. It's about the strength in your posture when you know your worth. It's about the grace in your movements when you're comfortable in your own skin. It's about the energy you bring into a room when you're authentically yourself. I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the most conventionally beautiful people in the world. I've seen women who look like they walked off the cover of a magazine. And you know what I've noticed? The ones who are truly captivating, truly magnetic, aren't necessarily the ones with the most perfect features. They're the ones who are most comfortable with themselves. They're the ones who own who they are, flaws and all. They're the ones who radiate confidence and self-acceptance. That's what draws people in. That's what makes someone unforgettable. And on the flip side, I've seen people who fit every conventional beauty standard, but who are so insecure, so uncomfortable in their own skin, that it overshadows their physical appearance. Because when you don't believe in your own beauty, when you're constantly trying to hide or change or improve yourself, people can feel that energy. It creates a barrier between you and the world. Let me share something vulnerable with you. There have been times in my life when I've looked at photos of myself and cringed. Times when I've read comments online about my appearance and felt my stomach drop. Times when I've walked a red carpet and felt completely exposed and judged. And in those moments, I have a choice. I can believe the narrative that I'm not good enough, that I need to change, that I need to conform to someone else's standard. Or I can remember my truth, that I am exactly who I'm meant to be, that my worth is not determined by other people's opinions, and that the most beautiful thing I can be is authentically myself. It's not always easy to choose that second option, especially when we're bombarded with messages telling us we're not enough. Social media has made this so much worse. We're constantly comparing ourselves to carefully curated, heavily filtered versions of other people's lives. We're seeing highlight reels and thinking they're reality. We're looking at photos that have been edited and airbrushed and manipulated, and we're trying to make our real bodies, our real faces, our real lives match up to those impossible standards. But here's what I want you to remember. Comparison is the thief of joy. Every moment you spend wishing you were someone else is a moment you're not spending appreciating who you are. Every time you look at someone else's life and feel inadequate, you're giving away your power. You're letting external circumstances control your internal state. You're forgetting that you have your own unique gifts, your own unique path, your own unique beauty. There's a Sanskrit saying that I love, swabhava. It means your own nature, your essential self. The idea is that each of us has a swabhava, a true nature that's uniquely ours. And when we live in alignment with our swabhava, when we honor who we really are instead of trying to be someone else, that's when we experience true peace and true power. That's when life flows. That's when we make our greatest contributions. But we've been taught to ignore our swabhava. We've been taught to look outside ourselves for validation, for direction, for worth. We've been taught to ask, what do other people want me to be? Instead of, who am I really? And that disconnect between who we are and who we're trying to be creates so much suffering. I think about the young girls who write to me on social media. So many of them are struggling with the same insecurities I struggled with. They tell me they wish they looked different, acted different, were different. And my heart breaks for them because I know that pain. I know what it's like to feel like you're not enough. But I also want to shake them gently and say, don't waste your precious youth and energy trying to be someone else. You are a miracle exactly as you are. The world needs you, not some watered down version of you that's trying to fit in. Because here's the thing, the world has enough copies. What it needs is originals. The world doesn't need another person who looks like everyone else, acts like everyone else, thinks like everyone else. The world needs your unique perspective, your unique voice, your unique talents, your unique combination of strengths and experiences and quirks and passions. That's what will make a difference. That's what will leave a mark. I want you to imagine something with me for a moment. Imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and all the pressure was gone. All the expectations, all the shoulds and supposed tos, all the voices telling you that you need to be different. Gone. And you had complete permission to just be yourself. To dress how you want to dress. To speak how you want to speak. To pursue what you want to pursue, to express what you want to express. No judgment, no criticism, no consequences, just pure freedom to be authentically you. How would that feel? What would you do differently? Who would you be? Now here's the beautiful truth. You already have that permission. You always have. You don't need anyone else to give it to you. You can give it to yourself right now. The only thing holding you back is your own fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being too much or not enough. But that fear is just a story you're telling yourself. It's not truth. It's not reality. It's just fear, and you can choose not to let it run your life. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you won't face criticism or pushback or people who don't understand you. You absolutely will. When you have the courage to be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you something else, not everyone will celebrate that. Some people will be uncomfortable. Some people will be critical. Some people will try to pull you back into conformity. But you know what? Those people are not your people. Your people are the ones who celebrate you for who you are, not who they want you to be. And the crazy thing is, when you have the courage to be yourself, you give other people permission to be themselves too. Your authenticity creates a ripple effect. It shows others that it's possible to live life on your own terms. It challenges the status quo. It expands what people think is possible. You become a beacon for others who are still hiding, still conforming, still trying to fit in. I think about some of the most powerful moments in my career, and they've all been moments when I chose to be myself rather than what I thought I should be. When I decided to keep my accent, when I chose roles that reflected my culture rather than trying to play ethnically ambiguous characters, when I spoke up about issues I cared about even when it would have been easier to stay silent, when I showed vulnerability instead of pretending to be perfect. Those were the moments that resonated with people. Those were the moments that made a difference. Because people don't connect with perfection. They connect with authenticity. They connect with vulnerability. They connect with truth. When you're trying to be perfect, you're essentially lying. You're presenting a false version of yourself, and people can sense that. It creates a wall between you and everyone else. But when you're real, when you're honest about who you are, including your flaws and mistakes and struggles, that's when real connection happens. That's when trust is built. That's when impact is made. Let me tell you about a speech I gave a few years ago where I completely fell apart on stage. I was talking about some personal experiences and I got emotional. Tears started flowing and I couldn't stop them. My makeup was running, my voice was breaking. And I remember thinking, this is a disaster. I look like a mess. I sound like a mess. I'm not being professional. But you know what happened? After that speech, more people came up to me than after any other speech I'd ever given. They thanked me for being real. They thanked me for showing emotion. They said it gave them permission to be emotional too, to not always have it together, to be human. My mess connected with people in a way that my polished perfection never had. That's the power of authenticity. That's what happens when you stop trying to be perfect and start being real. You create space for genuine human connection. You create space for others to be themselves. You create space for healing and growth and transformation. Not transformation into someone else, but transformation into a fuller, more authentic version of yourself. Now, I want to address something important. Some of you might be thinking, but I do have things I need to change. I have bad habits. I have toxic patterns. I have behaviors that are hurting me or others. And you're right. There's a difference between accepting who you are at your core and accepting behaviors that aren't serving you. You can completely accept yourself as a worthy, valuable, beautiful human being while also recognizing that there are specific behaviors or patterns you want to shift. The key is that those changes should come from a place of love, not shame. They should come from a desire to be more aligned with your values, more healthy, more free, not from a belief that you're fundamentally flawed. It's the difference between saying, I'm bad and need to fix myself, and saying, I'm good and I want to grow into an even better version of myself. One comes from self-hatred, the other from self-love. The results are completely different. When you try to change from self-hatred, it rarely sticks, because you're operating from a place of punishment and deprivation. You're forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do because you think you're not good enough as you are. And the moment the pressure lets up, you snap back to old patterns. But when you change from self-love, it's sustainable because you're making choices that honor who you are and what you value. You're growing in a direction that feels aligned and authentic. You're not fighting against yourself. You're working with yourself. I've had to learn this lesson over and over again. There have been times when I've pushed myself too hard, worked too much, neglected my health and relationships because I thought I had to prove myself. And every time I've ended up burned out and exhausted. It wasn't until I started making decisions from a place of self-love rather than self-doubt that things shifted. Now, when I work hard, it's because I love what I'm doing, not because I'm trying to prove I'm worthy. When I take care of my health, it's because I value my body, not because I hate how I look. When I invest in relationships, it's because connection matters to me, not because I think I need others to validate my worth. Same actions, completely different energy, and the results are so much better. You are powerful exactly as you are, not someday when you've achieved all your goals, not when you've lost the weight or made the money or gotten the promotion or found the relationship. Right now, today, this version of you, with all your imperfections and uncertainties and struggles, this version of you is powerful. This version of you is capable. This version of you is enough, and you are beautiful exactly as you are. Not in spite of your differences, but because of them. Not when you've changed all the things you don't like about yourself, but right now with every scar and wrinkle and unique feature that tells the story of your life. You are beautiful because you are alive, because you are here, because you are you. There is no one else in the entire world who has your exact combination of experiences and perspectives and talents and quirks. That alone makes you beautiful. That alone makes you precious. That alone makes you irreplaceable. I want you to do something for me. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to place your hand on your heart. Feel it beating. That heartbeat is proof that you're alive. Proof that you have purpose. Proof that your story isn't finished yet. And I want you to say something to yourself. Say it out loud if you can, or whisper it, or just think it clearly. I am enough. Exactly as I am right now, I am enough. Say it again. I am enough. And one more time. I am enough. Does it feel true yet? Maybe not. Maybe you've spent so long believing the opposite that these words feel like a lie. But I promise you, with every fiber of my being, they are the truest words you'll ever speak. You are enough. You have always been enough. You will always be enough. Not because of what you do or what you achieve or how you look or what others think of you. You are enough because you exist. Your worth is inherent, not earned. I know there are systems and structures and people in your life who benefit from you believing you're not enough. The entire advertising industry depends on you feeling inadequate, so you'll buy products to fix yourself. The fashion industry thrives on your insecurity about your body. The self-help industry sometimes profits from convincing you that you're broken and need fixing. Social media algorithms are designed to make you feel like everyone else has it figured out except you. There are forces actively working to make you feel less than, because when you feel less, then you're easier to manipulate and control. But when you stand in your power, when you know your worth, when you accept yourself completely, you become dangerous to those systems. You become uncontrollable. You become free. And that freedom is the most threatening thing to any system that depends on your insecurity. So they will try to pull you back. They will show you images of perfection and make you feel inadequate. They will set impossible standards and shame you for not meeting them. They will profit from your self-doubt. Don't let them. Your self-acceptance is an act of rebellion. Your self-love is revolutionary. Your decision to be unapologetically yourself in a world that's constantly trying to change you is one of the most powerful things you can do. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who's watching you, everyone who's waiting for permission to be themselves too. I think about my journey, all the twists and turns, all the moments of doubt and fear, all the times I almost gave up because I didn't think I was enough. And I'm so grateful I didn't. I'm so grateful I kept going. Not because I eventually became perfect or achieved some ultimate goal, but because I learned to accept myself. I learned to love myself. I learned to be myself. And that made all the difference. The success I've had, the opportunities that have come my way, the relationships I've built, the impact I've been able to make, none of it came from changing who I was at my core. It all came from embracing who I was and having the courage to show up as that person in every room I entered. The roles I'm most proud of are the ones where I brought my full self to the character. The relationships I treasure most are the ones where I can be completely authentic. The work that's been most fulfilling is the work I've done from a place of passion and purpose, not obligation and insecurity. And here's what I've discovered: the more I accept myself, the more others accept me. The more I love myself, the more love flows into my life. The more I believe in my worth, the more others recognize it too. It's not magic, it's energy. When you truly, deeply believe that you're valuable, you carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You make decisions differently. You set boundaries differently. You show up differently. And people respond to that energy. But it has to be real. You can't fake self-acceptance. You can't pretend to love yourself while secretly hating everything about who you are. That disconnect will show up in your life. Real self-acceptance means looking at yourself honestly, including all the parts you've been taught to hide or change, and saying, yes, this is me, all of it, and I'm okay with that, more than okay. I'm proud of that. It means stopping the constant war with yourself. It means making peace with who you are. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's a journey. It's not like you wake up one day and suddenly you're completely self-accepting and never doubt yourself again. There are still days when I struggle with insecurity. There are still moments when I compare myself to others or worry about what people think or feel like I'm not doing enough. But those moments are becoming fewer and farther between. And when they happen, I now have tools to handle them. I have a foundation of self-acceptance that I can return to. I have a knowing deep in my bones that I am valuable regardless of any temporary feeling of inadequacy. So how do you build that foundation? How do you move from self-rejection to self-acceptance? It starts with awareness. You have to become aware of the negative narratives you're telling yourself, the constant criticism, the harsh judgments, the comparisons, the ways you diminish yourself. Just notice them. Don't judge yourself for having these thoughts. Just become aware of them, because you can't change what you're not aware of. Then start questioning those narratives. Where did they come from? Are they actually true? Or are they just stories you've been told or assumptions you've made? Whose voice are you hearing when you criticize yourself? Is it your voice? Or is it your parents, your teachers, your peers, societies? Often, we're not even criticizing ourselves with our own thoughts. We're repeating criticism we internalized from others. Next, start actively practicing self-compassion. Talk to yourself the way you'd talk to someone you love. Would you ever speak to your best friend the way you speak to yourself in your head? Would you ever criticize a child the way you criticize yourself? Of course not. So why do you think it's okay to treat yourself that way? Start being as kind to yourself as you would be to anyone else you care about. And then start celebrating what makes you different. Make a list of all the ways you're unique, all the characteristics that set you apart. And instead of seeing them as flaws, start seeing them as features. Start seeing them as your superpowers. Start appreciating them. Start owning them. Start celebrating them. Find your people. Surround yourself with people who celebrate you for who you are, not who they want you to be. People who see your worth. People who reflect back to you your own beauty and power. People who encourage you to be more yourself, not less. And distance yourself from people who are constantly criticizing you, judging you, trying to change you. You don't owe anyone access to you, especially people who make you feel less. Then practice showing up as yourself in small ways. Maybe it's wearing something you love but have been afraid to wear. Maybe it's speaking up about something you care about. Maybe it's sharing a piece of your story you've been hiding. Maybe it's pursuing a passion you've been denying. Start small. Build your authenticity muscle. Each time you choose to be yourself despite fear, you prove to yourself that you can do it. You build confidence. You build trust in yourself and celebrate your wins. Every time you choose self-acceptance over self-rejection, every time you choose authenticity over conformity, every time you choose to be yourself despite the pressure to be someone else, celebrate it. Acknowledge it. Let it sink in. You're doing something incredibly brave. You're doing something incredibly important. You're reclaiming your power. Because that's what this is really about. Power. You are so much more powerful than you realize. You have so much more to offer than you give yourself credit for. But you can't access that power when you're busy trying to be someone else. You can't access it when you're convinced you're not enough. You can't access it when you're at war with yourself. That power is only available when you accept yourself completely, when you love yourself unconditionally, when you believe in your own worth. And the world needs your power. The world needs your gifts. The world needs your voice. The world needs your perspective. The world needs you to show up fully as yourself because no one else can be you. No one else can make your unique contribution. No one else can touch the lives you're meant to touch in the way you're meant to touch them. Think about the ripple effect of your life. Every person you interact with, every conversation you have, every action you take, it all ripples out into the world. And when you're showing up as your authentic self, those ripples are so much more powerful. You inspire others. You challenge others. You give others permission. You change others, not by trying to change them, but by changing yourself, by accepting yourself, by being yourself. I think about the messages I get from people around the world who tell me that something I said or did gave them courage, gave them hope, gave them permission to be themselves. And it's never when I'm trying to be perfect or impressive. It's when I'm being real, when I'm being vulnerable, when I'm being me. That's what touches people. That's what makes a difference. You have that same power. You can touch lives. You can make a difference. You can change the world, not by being someone else, not by waiting until you're perfect, but by being yourself right now exactly as you are. That's your greatest gift to the world, your authentic self. So I'm asking you today to make a decision. Decide to stop the war with yourself. Decide to accept who you are. Decide to celebrate what makes you different. Decide to believe in your own worth. Decide to show up as yourself, even when it's scary. Decide to reclaim your power. You don't need to change. You need to remember who you are. You need to reconnect with your essence. You need to strip away all the layers of conditioning and expectation and criticism that have been piled on top of you and rediscover the beautiful, powerful, unique being that you've always been underneath. You are not your mistakes. You are not your failures. You are not your rejections. You are not what other people think of you. You are not the criticism you've received. You are not the standards you failed to meet. You are so much more than any of that. You are a complete, complex, magnificent human being with gifts and talents and perspectives that only you possess. And you are beautiful, not in some narrow, conventional way. Beautiful in your uniqueness, beautiful in your authenticity, beautiful in your courage to be yourself, beautiful in your vulnerability, beautiful in your strength, beautiful in your journey, beautiful in your story, beautiful in your existence. Look, I know it's hard to believe sometimes. I know there are days when you look in the mirror and all you see